Welcome to the How to Wedding podcast. I'm your host, Paul Santiago. Today is a great episode. I found Marirosa by accident because someone posted in a Facebook group that they got featured in a blog. And normally I just skim through it, but this one really caught my eye. It was a blog about Latino weddings. And if you know me, I always look for those niche specialty sites that feature not only real people, but also weddings that are relatable to every single culture. So this blog is amazing. It has so much potential and it's grown so much in a span of a short amount of time. And I can't wait for you to hear this episode. Let's face it, you don't want to be lost in the woods with someone who grew up in the city, right? How to Wedding is coming right up because, just like what we always say, if we're getting lost, let's get lost together. Let's get lost together. And I feel like this is quite alright. Let's get lost together. Testing. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Thank you for being on the show. It's such a delight that you said yes to my invitation, and I'm so happy.
I was glad to be asked.
Oh yeah, for sure. Okay, first of all, just to break the ice, I want to ask you, who did you vote for? No, I'm just kidding. I'm gonna ask you.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm gonna ask.
DC. We don't want.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you. Tell us something about yourself that the
Okay.
audience is probably going to be surprised to know about you. Or do you
Well,
just want to talk about who you voted for?
that's right. I'm actually only 4'11", so I'm very, very short. So right now, sitting in the chair, my feet are hanging. And yeah, I think that probably surprises people quite a bit, and that I'm a lot older than I look. So
That's
a good.
really surprising. I thought you were taller.
No, 4'11". That's it.
Crazy. No, I can't wait to meet you now. Okay, so
there you go.
oh man, that's so funny. Okay, now I before we get into what we're going to talk about, I always love to know about the origin story of people, and I would love to know what your origin story is. What got you into this industry?
So I'm actually originally from Puerto Rico. I was born and raised in Puerto Rico and lived there till I was about 10 years old when we moved to the United States, to Northern Virginia. So about 20 minutes outside of Washington, D.C. is the best way to explain it. Always been into photography, so that's how I got into the wedding industry. I started back in 2006 with lifestyle photography, and from there some weddings, got bit by the wedding bug, and focused on weddings for up until now, almost 14 years. So I've been doing about 20 to 40 weddings a year since then. And that's really what got me into the wedding industry. And then from there, it has evolved through the photography into the Latino market and the Latino voice within the wedding industry.
That's
but
amazing.
Before anything else, I'm a photographer, and then also this great second project in life I have right now.
Let me just say that once you get being in the photography or video industry, when you're in the wedding industry, it really helps when you're trying to get into a different venture, because
it does
money on public, branding. You can just take photos of yourself.
That's right. But I'm not a good subject when it comes to being in front of the camera. I'm much better behind the camera than I am in front of it. So, but yet it's true. You look at things through a different lens.
That's so cool. Okay, so now the reason why we're here is because I invited you because you have a new venture that you've done. And do you mind describing to us what it is?
Sure. So I'll explain what it is, and then I'll let you know how I got to where it is today. I launched on March 1st of last year, so of 2019, Amor, Latino, Unveiled. And what that is a wedding blog, an international wedding blog, where every couple that's featured within the blog, their true, real weddings, their engagements, style shoots, at least one of them has a connection to the Latino heritage. So that was very, very important. That was the main reason for showcasing our culture and our traditions. Whether you are a first generation or fifth generation Latino, when you're touched by that culture within your life, it is a very powerful part of your life. And I did not find a place within the wedding industry where that was reflected out there. So how it came about was that about 2 years ago, I did a styled shoot, as many photographers know what those are. And it was something that had been sitting in my heart for a long time, to do a styled shoot to celebrate the Latina bride. So we brought together, I reached out to a friend of mine who is a wedding planner here in the area. She's from Mexico, and kind of said, hey, let's do this. And it wasn't about bringing only Latino vendors. It was about bringing people together to celebrate a culture and traditions, colors and sounds and music and all of those things. So we had a wide array of vendors. And as a photographer, you want to get it published. That's the goal. And I went on a hunt to what I wanted that market to be like. Yes, I got it published. I was thrilled to get it published. However, I wanted to get it published in the Latino market. And unfortunately, after months of market research, there really was no place for the Latino bride and or groom or connection to the heritage out there in the marketplace of anything representing us. Any type of wedding that you want to do out there, there's a blog that kind of guides you. If you want to do, if you're African American and you want those cultures and those traditions and those things that we grew up with, there's a blog for that. But if we don't see ourselves in images and we don't feel represented, I think that's the way human nature is. So I was raised by a woman that kind of said, if there's a problem, don't complain about it unless you have a solution. If you do have the solution, go figure it out. So I united fronts with my good friend, and we launched Amor Latino last March. So we'll be just about a year old. And from that, back in September, she moved on to focus more on her business and some other things on her end, and I took it over completely. So I am the only person that runs this at this point. But that's what I focus on. I focus on showcasing weddings from all over the world, a lot here in the United States. I would say 90% are US based. Plus what we also do is we have a vendor directory so that vendors can be listed on there regardless of background, so that ideally a couple can come onto the website, look for vendors in their regions across the country and across the world. They can find access to our marketplace. So there's all encompassing one place for couples that have that connection to the Latino heritage and want to include that as part of their wedding day. So that's how it all came about. So here we are a year later, and it's growing very grassroots, but it's definitely growing. And I provide a lot of downloads and free guides to couples about traditions and things like how to get your Latino guests to RSVP for a wedding, because culturally,
oh man,
one person and 15 show up. So as we were saying earlier, so it does all those kind of downloads, and those are free to our readers and all of that.
Oh wow, they're all free. That's
yeah. All the resources like that are free. People, the things that are there from the vendor side of the house and advertising and vendor directory and the marketplace, those have a very minimal fee simply because it helps sustain the website and it helps sustain the mission of what I'm trying to do. Yeah.
I remember I'm in a wedding group here in SoCal. And I was telling you that the way I found out about you was one of the vendors, he has like a cigar bar, and he's like, oh, our cigar bar got featured on this website. And I go to the site and I'm like, you're right. It's the only one I've ever seen like that it's just focused on a niche. And I love that because you're giving something realistic to people who are planning,
Yeah.
So I love that. That's a really
and it goes And it goes both ways, because I've gone to wedding events and wedding shows where a lot of our, here in the United States, a lot of our couples are fusion. They're two cultures completely combining. My husband is not Spanish speaking. He's American, and as I am, but I'm from Puerto Rico. But we still had things that were tradition based from Puerto Rico, because he acknowledges and celebrates my culture, as that's part of who I am. But it's interesting to meet couples where, let's say, if the bride is Latina and the groom is not, or vice versa. I met a non-Latina bride come to me and say, how cool, my fiance is from Peru. How great that I can find things, how I can incorporate his culture in our wedding. So the website is in English. The website is not in Spanish, because one of the reasons I created this was to allow all inclusivity. And to me, love is love, and all inclusive is so important to me that it doesn't matter to me if a vendor is Latino or not. They're still servicing every community, and that's the way we should all be treated in the ability to be reached by all types of vendors, not just Latino vendors or not just American vendors or things like that. So the blog itself is in English because I want it to be a base language across the world, and that is English.
Okay,
and
that's good.
I don't know if I want to write any of those blog posts in Spanish. There's too many versions of Spanish. There's too many slang.
Plus, I won't be able to understand it.
Exactly.
I want to understand.
Exactly, and that's exactly the point. The point is, if we want this all inclusivity and we want to be part of this greater community, it has to have a common bond. And the common bond here and on the internet is English. So yes. That's kind of the focus.
Also, your point that you said that you have fusion couples, so you would want the half of the fusion to be able to understand everything. That's really good.
Exactly. And that's the people that my husband fell in love with me and vice versa, but he fell in love with me, and part of me is made up of a culture. Part of you is made up of a culture, whether, even though I believe you and your wife are both Filipinos, you still value those things in your culture. That's part of who you are. So I think we need to celebrate that regardless of what culture it is, whether it's American or Latina or Filipino or whatever.
Yeah, we all come from somewhere, and it's
exactly.
That's the reason why this is a great country, because it's a country of mixed, just immigrants like from different places. And I remember we did a wedding last year, and they're all white. Mm-hmm. They said, okay, for the garter toss, we are going to do something different, because my sister married a Peruvian. I think he was Peruvian. And they have a tradition where he's going to throw like a box of alcohol or liquor, and whoever catches it. Is that Peruvian?
Yeah. There's a few that do that.
So I've never seen it. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is great.
It's fantastic.
So it's things like these, like those small details, like even for them, they're not Latino, but they wanted that in there because it's something special. It's something different.
Exactly. And, and I've said it before, if I put my photographer hat on for a minute and I say, if we don't celebrate all of these traditions, and it could be something as simple as, an American family does something at every wedding. I mean, as a photographer, I've done weddings where the couple is not Latino, and they've come to me and said, at every wedding, we take this type of photo with all the generations, so all the cousins. Well, we need to make sure that's celebrating their traditions and their culture and what they've been brought up with. If we don't document it and celebrate it during these big events, eventually they go away, because as generations flow, you lose it. And I want my kids to look at an album and go, what was mom thinking she was doing throwing that box of liquor? Because it says, oh, well, your grandmother, and there comes back that tradition. And that's just something that's so incredibly important. It's made me who I am. I moved here when I was 10. I did not know a single word of English at all. The only vision I had of women or girls in the United States was Barbie. So I thought I was going to be the only brunette in the United States. It was a very sad 9-year-old world. And I got here on a Saturday, and I was put in school on that Monday not knowing a single word of English.
Wow.
My mom said, go for it. See you later. And you just figured it out. So, but when I got home, I was still in the comfort of my Latino home. And the assumption a lot of times is, oh, maybe the family didn't know English, or maybe, no, my mom's college degree, corporate, she wanted to keep and instill in us the roots that we were brought up with back home. And that continues to stay with me to this day. And I'm so grateful for that because I celebrate it every single day.
I love that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's the thing too with cultural weddings. There's always a story. There's always a story from the parents, from the bride, from the groom, and it's something that, you know, when you capture it with photos or video and then you show it to them, the story is going to be part of their story, and it's beautiful.
Right.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and you know, the videographer, if you don't capture that through your video,
oh yeah,
it doesn't survive.
yeah.
You know, it doesn't survive.
One last thing before I move to the other question. What I love about when I started filming here was filming here in the US, I mean, was people break the traditions because they want to just I guess they get inspiration from other cultures. You know, with like Catholics, we don't see each other until they start walking. But some couples, they just break it because they want to be different, and they've seen that before. And I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
You're trying to preserve a culture that's for the next generations. I love
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So now, since you're like me, you've been in the industry for a while, and you've had a lot of weddings under your belt. What are the most common mistakes you see couples make in their wedding planning process?
Oof.
I have time.
So I think the biggest, and I don't know if it's a mistake or is it a misconception, and I can only talk for what I've experienced and myself. In general, if I were to say from a vendor perspective, I would tell all couples to make sure that you have a connection and a relationship to the human being that vendor is. It may be somebody that you don't see very often. Maybe it's, I don't know, the person that's making you the table signs on Etsy. But what that means is that person has a home-based business, and that person has taken value in your day. Yes, they're getting paid, but there's still a human behind it. And I think it's very easy planning a wedding to forget the human element because it is expensive, and you're just like, who can give me the best for the least? And I totally agree with that, but don't sacrifice your experience along the way. I do believe that there's certain things, and just like anything, you get what you pay for. So just because X person may be $500 less, it doesn't mean that you're going to get the same things, you know. And at the end of the day, you've got to book and hire the vendors that meet the vision of what you want for your wedding day. And everyone's on a budget. I love the fact of, oh, and I'm on a budget. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, but so am I. I'm on a budget. You're on a budget. You know that you need to be able to charge X amount for your video services to be able to sustain your business. That's your budget. You know, you can't do the same job that you would do for $4,000. You can't do the same job for that for $200. It's not your budget. So I think that whole budget thing is find something that fits that niche of cost for you and get the best that you can within that. The people that are going to be closest to you on your wedding day, videographer, photographer, make sure you like them, that you like them as humans. Because if you don't, you're going to get annoyed with them very much so on the day that they need to be your ground on that wedding day. There's plenty of times that you and I, and what we live at, is we have to kind of have that sanity check with our couples for them to know that we're an extension of them, that we got their back. And they don't get that unless they get to know Paul. They get to know you as a person. I always tell my couples that I am a human being before I'm a photographer. Absolutely. And I'm not transactional. So I don't feel as though my photography is just going to be a transaction, and then no, you actually mean something to me. And I think that has a lot to do with it. Yeah. So mistake-wise, I just think that when you get so cut up on a specific budget that it's not willing to shift, you could ideally make the wrong decision that you will later regret. Yeah. Yeah.
I always believe that whenever you decide that you're going to get married, whenever you decide that you're going to have a wedding, it's already a luxury. Weddings are luxury. Like that's you're not supposed. You don't need to have a wedding. You can just marry in a But having that mindset would immediately, like, I feel like, change people's perception, right?
Yeah. And I always say, what my husband and I did a vow renewal about almost 5 years ago. So I've been recently on that other side, and it's expensive. But as a photographer, I have photographed weddings where the budget was $150,000 for the wedding, at the Willard Hotel in Washington, D.C., next to the White House. And I have photographed a backyard wedding that when I walked in, I said, oof, I'm their budget. They're still just as important. The photos are still beautiful. The groom, the bride, the couple are still just as amazing, because at the end of the day, they're marrying the person they want.
I always tell my friends, we got into this business not because of the money. We got into this business for the connection,
Absolutely.
Because I could always be a filmmaker and at least do corporate work and get paid more, but there's no connection there. There's no connection if I film an event for Taco Bell. They're not going to be like, oh my God, this is the greatest video I've ever. No, they're never going to say that. And that's what fuels
your first order that gets paid at the end of the month, and you move on.
And then buy, right? So I feel like connection is what we're looking for. Of course, we want to make money, so we need to charge accordingly. But, it's also,
if I really want to hear the same songs every single weekend, I can just make a playlist, I want the connection. And from a photography perspective, so many of my couples have come back as their families are growing. So what ends up happening is I've got some on second and third kids, and then I look at it, I go, oh my gosh, if I go back to engagement, wedding, maternity of the first full year of that child, maternity on the second life, that's a family. I attended a birthday party for one of my wedding couples, and literally I was with his mom in the kitchen cooking the tacos.
Oh.
And I was there for the little girl's first birthday, and the mom said, oh, you've got to go upstairs to her nursery. When I went upstairs to her nursery, every photo in that nursery was mine. I teared up. I thought, this is the connection I want to make. Yeah. That's the difference I want to make in somebody's life. So it's a tough one, but it's a fun one. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's exactly how I feel too. No, so now I want to ask you, how do you feel about? I feel like this is an issue for me.
Okay.
But how do you feel about couples? How do you feel about Pinterest couples? Like, for example, for me, I look like this, right? But all of the photos and all of the places that I base my inspiration off of, they don't look like me. Right. Their hair is blonder and their jawline is much more.
Well, it's the same concept with Latinos. In this country, in this world now, we're such a blend of people. We come from all shapes and sizes, and we still find that one connection to the other. Pinterest, to me, I've learned to use it myself, but you also have to realize that Pinterest is a search engine. So from the perspective of ideas and concepts, it's fantastic. I always tell couples that if you're going to do Pinterest for your wedding, use it for inspiration, not duplication. I sometimes will tell couples when they're kind of stuck on, if I ask them, well, what do you like? Like, tell me a little bit more about what you envision. They kind of clam up. When I turn it around, I say, tell me what you don't like. They are immediately able to tell me what they don't like. But if you think about it, nobody pins something they cannot see themselves doing or trying. So it does give you insight into things. But again, if I'm a Latina bride and I'm looking for that type of inspiration, and all I see is one vision of a bride in a dress, it's really hard for me to picture myself. The same thing goes to, but keep it in mind that I think it goes further than hair color being blonde. You know what I mean? I think it goes everywhere from male to female, to height, to size,
Yep.
to being large, to being short, to being older, to be younger. I think it goes across the whole span. Pinterest is this vision of what social media wants the world to be versus the reality of who we are. You know, from a photographer, every wedding that I do, unless I live, like I mentioned, outside of Washington, D.C., which means there's a lot of politics and, you know, I'm 20 minutes from the CIA. So there's a lot of times that there are weddings that happen that maybe a handful here and there that the photos do not get online because the jobs that the couple has do not allow them for that. And that's totally okay. But other than that, every one of my weddings is on my website. I do a peek. Why? Because to me, every couple is perfect the way they are. And I've had large couples and I've had small couples. I had tall couples and short couples. You know, as a 4'11" photographer, I've been asked, well, how are you going to deal with me being 6'5"? And I look at them and I go, I stand on a chair. It's never been a problem for me, so we'll take care of it. You know, the good thing about being this short is no one sees you. So no one gets in your way. They can just shoot over your head. But from the culture side, Pinterest can be tough on anybody's self-esteem. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. I was gonna say that I just went to a wedding yesterday. Wait, when is it? Oh, I went to a wedding Sunday. And I was looking for inspiration for a suit that I was gonna wear. I'm like, I wanna, jazz it up a little bit. And all of the things that I saw at first are people that are not the same size as me. So that's the beauty of the internet. That's my point. Is the beauty of Instagram, the beauty of Facebook and Google is that you could narrow your search and
you can
able to see. Like now, I go to a site called Good Counsel, and all their models are plus size guys, like big guys,
right?
Big boned gentlemen, and
exactly.
It's perfect because now I'm like I could kind of like see myself in this.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like I said, it's not just culture. It's height. It's, anything and everything, and we have these visions of what people should be or culture should be without really having the substance underneath it to say that's the way they are. I've been told plenty of times, you're too white to be Puerto Rican. I'm sorry. I didn't think there was shade for being Puerto Rican. But I'm kind of going, well, my great-grandfather was from the Canary Islands, which is off the coast of Africa in Spain. Yeah, he was blonde hair, blue eyed. I'm still just as Puerto Rican. I was born and raised there. And you can have somebody stand next to me that is completely darker or lighter, and we're still just as Puerto Rican. So it's quite interesting to see that dynamic of it. It makes it fun sometimes, so I will give you that. When they don't think you understand the language and you do.
Oh, I've had those before. Not me, but I've heard stories about those things.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I want to ask you. I guess what do you want for couples? What are you trying to do for the couples who go to your site? Like, what are you trying to help them?
Yeah, I'm trying to help them a few things. I want the website to be the place where couples where one of them has a connection to the Latino culture can come in and look at those traditions and look at and be inspired by the weddings that they can see themselves in. That's the first thing. As I continue to grow, I want them to come to the website to find vendors that service that marketplace. In my vendor directory, I have about 140 or so vendors right now, and both American and Latino, doesn't matter. The only difference is that if you're bilingual, I put a little rose next to your name so people know that, hey, they could be bilingual in Spanish or know a little bit of Spanish or know Portuguese or things like that. But other than that, to come together into one hub. The marketplace, which is what I'm opening up in March, will be, again, a hub where couples can come find things that they may need for their wedding. Some things will have to do with the Latino culture. Some things will be, like I'm putting up a line of like T-shirts, the bride tribe and things like that, but in Spanish and English. So you get a little bit of that, little bit of spice in there. But you'll also have the ability to have online stores that sell things to consumers, be able to be a portal to get to them. So that's what the marketplace is going to be. I want it to be a one-stop shop that will give people the ability to have all their questions answered or find the resources of the questions they may have. I introduce every couple in my posts. So I post 5 days a week. And the first line in it is meet the couple. To me, it's very important to give a face to what you're seeing. So when I tend to look for different things within the images that I post that maybe other blogs don't, I'm not just looking for the best editorial kind of stuff. I'm looking for the real connection. I just have a blog coming up. I think it's next week. Sometimes I get ahead of it and I kind of forget what day it falls on. But there were just these 2 images of her hugging her grandmother. Culturally, that's important to us. So I tend to try to bring things like that in where it's going to make that connection. The difference too is that I'm putting a face to it. So Amor, Latino, Unveiled is me trying to give a voice to the culture through whatever ways I can. We do guest blogging. So like today we had a guest blog about 12 Latino-inspired wedding party gifts. Hilarious gifts, but they were all like just a little bit of a spice to it. And who doesn't want like a Patron bottle as a shot, But it's that uniqueness. So I want it to be a place where everybody can find themselves. Even in a mixed cultural couple, like my husband, military, former military, married a Puerto Rican girl, and I married a guy from Michigan. Like, it just doesn't. But they can find themselves there. And I think that's the biggest thing for me. Yeah.
I just want to say that when I came across your website,
yeah,
it's just like what I said earlier. It was just mind blowing because you really dared to, just make sure that Latinos have a voice, and I truly appreciate that.
It makes me happy with who I am, and I love stories. I love traditions. I love, like, one of the biggest things to me that is so important at a wedding are generations. If somebody says to me, oh, my grandmother doesn't walk very well, we just won't worry about that photo. No. We're going to make the time for the photo, because unfortunately, the only times we come together as people in today's world is at weddings and funerals. You need the photo of grandma.
Yeah.
To me, the saddest but heartwarming moments are, unfortunately, when somebody passes and the photos, thankfully, that they have to go back to are the ones I've captured. So I'm in love with every grandparent you can imagine, because they remind me of my own grandparents, and things like that.
That's awesome. I love that you see. That's why it's a plus that you're a photographer and you have this blog.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's interesting because I wear these 2 different hats. I look at the photos that are submitted from a photography perspective and an emotional perspective. Yes, do not get me wrong. You're going to find the details. You're going to find the inspiration for the details and all of that. But I want the blog to have its own heartbeat. I want the blog to feel as though that if somebody goes in there and reads a story reads a little blurb about this high school sweetheart, how, I'll be honest, I did a story recently, it was last couple weeks ago. They met, it was a Puerto Rican couple. It was one of the first Puerto Rican weddings that I did. The story got me. They met after Hurricane Maria, working at a fast food restaurant. They're both nurses with master's degrees, and they could not get a better life in Puerto Rico, so he joined the Air Force. And she moved back to I think it was Connecticut with her family to continue her education, and left him behind. He went to the Air Force, and over Christmas just eloped in the Justice of the Peace's house. Was the wedding out of this world? For them, it was. And that's the story I told. Did it have 500 details, perfect tint of blush? No. But it celebrated the story and the love that they had. And that, to me, is what matters. Yeah. Yeah. So
that's the beauty of it. Just, focusing culturally, especially for us, we know what to expect.
Yeah.
And, we even if we know what to expect, something else is going to happen. And we're
always.
Yeah. So
that's usually when they do this. Yeah.
Yeah. We're like, what's going on? Is everyone drunk? So, okay. Now that we've talked about that, I would love it if the couples have any questions for you.
Yeah.
Or I would love it if you could tell them how to reach you and where to go.
Sure. So super easy. So the website is Amor, Latino, Unveiled. And I chose that name because I felt as though it was the unveiling of a love that maybe some people are not familiar with. I want it to be something that, even if you're not Latino and it's of interest, be culturally, go figure it out. It's interesting because we do not look at, one thing I've learned, it's not about the Latino wedding. It's about the Mexican wedding and the Peruvian wedding and the Colombian wedding, the Puerto Rican wedding. It's by country. Fascinating to me. I knew that, but didn't know that until I really got into the market research of what I was doing. And I thought, why aren't these hashtags working? But the moment I flipped it and took it even one more granular level to pick out a country, the world changed. As you know, I don't know how it is in the Philippines, but even now when I meet a Puerto Rican person here, what's your last name? Whose family are you from? What town are you from? And those are those connections. But couples can find us, again, Amor Latino, pretty simple to spell, unveiled.com. You can reach me through there. Vendors are able to reach out through there, get the media kit for the programs that we have, as well as on the website. Launching next month is also, I've put together all the free resources into one page. They're in there and you can find them on the side panel, but I wanted a place that actually said, click here and have them all in one area. So that's actually being published over the next week. So everything is right in there. And you can find everything from about Víbora de la Mar, which is a Mexican tradition, about the Aras ceremony, Lazo, how to get Latino couples to RSVP to your wedding, which is the toughest thing ever, how to have a bilingual ceremony. We've even put together a guide for that. And we continue to put guides together. Some of them were blog posts that I think I've repurposed as guides because I want to give the couple something tangible that they can download or that they can put on their phone. So everything right through there.
That's perfect. And she is going to send me all of that information.
I will.
In the notes section and down below. So I want to say that you have inspired us to, just be ourselves. And I love that. I love that when I saw that, you just inspired me to be me. And I've always had this imposter syndrome that, people aren't going to believe me because I'm brown or what. I'm a guy and I'm brown. I'm doing a podcast, a video in the net wedding industry. But, you just pushed me. You just pushed me to become me. And
I wasn't always that easy for me. And we talked about this before we went live, but it wasn't always easy. I still have that issue sometimes. And I just have to stop myself and say, who am I inside and where am I feeling the proudest and the most at home, and that's living my truth and living who I am. And, you know, I'm not perfect, but I'm just going to take it with, you know, if I survive one day, we're moving forward. And you know, I think that's just really important to celebrate who we are. Absolutely.
And that's why I wanted to have you as a guest here.
Thank
Because
you.
I want people to share that same
Yeah.
thought.
Send me those stories. I mean,
Oh,
I would
yeah.
love to hear from couples that want to either learn or things that they get from the blog, or even submit their own weddings. You know, I'm on Too Bright Lights, so people can submit through Too Bright Lights directly to me. It's me that gets it. So anytime that you reach out through the blog, it's not a staff behind the scenes that's running it. It's me. I'm the one with the emails. I'm the one accepting everything. I'm the one creating every ad and everything that you're seeing. I have some help behind the scenes because I can't code in WordPress. It's just not something I do. But other than that, it's me. So I want, you're reaching out to a human. Yeah.
That's perfect, because you know, you're one of the few blogs left that actually has a heart in it, and it's very passionate, and you can actually feel the drive of your blog, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All the best to you.
Thanks.
That's the interview, and I hope you learned something today. Feel free to reach out to our guest if you have any questions by clicking on their link in the show notes. This episode of the How to Wedding Podcast is done, but be sure to hit subscribe to our podcast to keep you up to date. Share this to someone who'll need it, and join the Facebook group to keep the discussion going. See you next time, and don't forget, if we're going to get lost,